Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Ashmit Kumar and here are the headlines that we're tracking this evening. The Sensex and the Nifty gain after a steady session on Dalal streets. Nifty manages to hold above 22,500 mark. Rupee gains strength against the dollar. Shares of recently listed Moody, IKS and SciLife tumble after the end of the lock-in period for the IPO investors. The lock-in period is over for 7 companies, freeing up more than 19 crore shares. India's exports and imports see a sharp drop in February amidst the US President Trump's tariff wars. Trade deficit for the first 11 months in FY25 rises 17% to more than $89 billion. Tata Motors and Samvardhan Motherson are likely to bear the brunt of Trump's upcoming reciprocal tariffs as per a Moody's report. Moody says that Tata Motors subsidiary JLR is exposed to potentially higher tariffs as their cars are manufactured within the European Union. Adds that Samvardhan Motherson generates around 20% of its revenue from the US. Maruti Suzuki to hike vehicle prices by up to 4% from April to offset the impact of rising input costs. This would be the third price hike this year. Tata Motors also announces up to a 2% price hike for its commercial vehicle segment. Shares of Ola Electric hit the lowest level since listing after a contractor seeks to initiate insolvency proceedings against the company. Rosmerta Digital alleges default in payments and moves the company law tribunal. Relief for Gautam Adani and Rajesh Adani in an alleged market regulations violations case that dates back to 2012. The Bombay High Court quashes a November 2019 Sessions Court order that refused to grant them relief. The High Court had stayed the order in December of 2019 itself, with interim relief being extended from time to time. Supreme Court agrees to hear the petition alleging lack of independence at the Comptroller and Auditor General, claims that the CAG is favouring the ruling government and demands an independent selection panel to appoint the top auditor. US President Donald Trump says he will talk to Russia's Vladimir Putin on Tuesday about ending the war in Ukraine. Trump claims that negotiators have already discussed steps to divide certain assets. China unleashes a new stimulus plan to boost consumption vigorously. Retail, sales and industrial output data beat expectations. Top global CEOs likely to meet President Xi Jinping next week, according to a Bloomberg report. NASA astronauts Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore scheduled to return home this Wednesday after being stranded at the International Space Station for nearly 9 months. A SpaceX capsule delivered 4 astronauts to the space station in what was a crew swap mission. Well, let's begin with a quick look at the day's market action. The Indian rupee gained some strength against the US dollar today. The rupee gained about 18 paise to end below the 87 levels against the greenback. The dollar index saw a strong rally over the last few weeks, and that appears to be losing steam, at least as of right now. Stock markets were largely steady in trade today. The Sensex gained over 340 points. The Nifty, meanwhile, gained 0.5% and managed to end above the 22,500 mark. Financial stocks gained in trade. The mid-caps outperformed the blue chips, with the index gaining over 330 points. And meanwhile, shares of recently listed Moody, IKS and SciLife tumbled after the end of the lock-in period for the IPO investors. The investors have collectively incurred a loss of 17,000 crore rupees since their listing in December. The erosion in market capitalization from their peaks stands at 30,000 crore rupees. And meanwhile, oil prices edged higher after the United States said that it will keep attacking the Houthis, the Yemeni separatist militant organization, until the Iran-backed group ends the attacks on shipping. The latest airstrikes by the US killed at least 53 people, as per the Houthi rebels. Gold prices, meanwhile, firmed up as geopolitical tensions and economic concerns over the tariff war triggered by the US fueled safe haven demand. Gold has gained around 14% so far this year. Meanwhile, Bitcoin prices remain steady but hovered below the $84,000 mark. Now, India's wholesale inflation rose to a 2-month high of 2.38% in the month of February, led by a rise in costs of manufactured food items, vegetable oils and beverages. However, vegetable prices eased, helping offset some of the inflationary pressures. As per data released this week, Retail inflation had eased to a 7-month low for the month of February. And also India's exports and imports witnessed a sharp drop in February. Exports are down 11% and imports are down 16% in February. The trade deficit for this month stands at $14 billion for the period between April 2024 to February of 2025. The trade deficit between the two of that period has widened by nearly 17% to $89 billion. Imports, meanwhile, rose 7.2%, while exports also jumped 6.2% during the period. This comes at a time the US President Donald Trump has threatened reciprocal tariffs on all countries from the 2nd of April. This also comes at a time when the US government is trying to strike a grand trade deal with India, which pertains to zero tariffs on all goods except agricultural products. And well, speaking of the US President, Donald Trump has said that he has no intention of creating exemptions on steel and aluminum tariffs. He added that reciprocal and sectoral tariffs, including those on autos, will go into effect on the April 2nd. Remember, Trump imposed 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports from March of 12th. Now, meanwhile, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has dismissed concerns over a stock market sell-off amid Trump's tariff threats, saying that markets will do well over the long term.
I would have made it April 1st, but you know what April 1st is? April Fool's Day. I figured, I don't like doing it, but I made it April 2nd. But it's a liberation day for our country, because we're going to be getting back a lot of the wealth that we so foolishly gave up to other countries, including friend and foe. If they're charging us, we're charging them. It's no longer they charge us and we don't charge them.
I'm not concerned about a little bit of volatility over 3 weeks, because if you look over the long term, the reason stocks are a safe and great investment is because you're looking over the long term. If you start looking at micro horizons, stocks become very risky. So we are focused over the medium long term, and I can't tell you that the market is going to go up today, tomorrow, next week, but I can tell you that if we put proper policies in place, it's going to lay the groundwork for both real income gains and job gains and continued asset gains.
Well, tariffs is clearly the buzzword there. Now, Tata Motors and Samvardhan Motherson are likely to bear the brunt of Trump's upcoming reciprocal tariffs, according to a Moody's report. Moody's has said that the impact depends on how much of the tariffs are passed on to the customers. Parikshit Luthra is joining us now with more details. Parikshit, clearly that's the buzzword. That's the big trigger that everyone's watching towards the US for. Tell us about the likely impact.
So Moody's ratings agency has done an analysis on the impact on South and Southeast Asia because of the reciprocal tariffs from US, which will come into effect on the 2nd of April. And they've said that significant domestic operations in companies in South and Southeast Asia will provide a buffer against any negative impact of US reciprocal tariffs. But sectors which could be most impacted here are automotive, steel, chemicals, and business services, and they have the highest exposure to US tariffs. Now, coming to India, Samvardhana Motherson, they could likely face cost increases and they may have to pass on cost to customers. This is because they're generating 20% revenue from the United States. But the report also goes on to say that Samvardhana is undergoing a massive diversification strategy to make sure that they don't have any major reliance on one particular jurisdiction. When it comes to Jaguar Land Rover, which is owned by Tata Motors, the report says the decline in demand from the US for JLR could be a credit negative. JLR would be exposed to higher US tariffs on EU or UK produced cars, because these are the two regions which produce cars, JLR cars, for the United States. Now, when it comes to TCS and Infosys, the report says that both these companies are better positioned to absorb increased immigration and visa costs. They won't face any impact of tariffs, but there is an impact because of higher visa costs. Business service providers are vulnerable to changes in US immigration policy. However, Indian IT companies have been increasing onshoring in the United States, and their good profitability gives them a buffer. When it comes to Reliance Industries, the report points out that strong balance sheet can absorb potential declines in demand or reduced profits, but also they could be indirectly exposed to escalating trade tensions. RIL exports around half of its production in oil to chemical segment. This is what the report is saying. So clearly there are some risks to Indian companies across these sectors, but hopefully strong profitability and strong balance sheet will provide a buffer.
Right, Parishit, thanks a lot for breaking that down, the impact of what those tariffs could be like. But staying on the subject, U.S. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard held bilateral talks with Defense Minister Rajnath Singh in a bid to boost defense ties between both the countries. The two leaders discussed a wide range of issues, including defense and sharing critical information. This comes a day after Gabbard met National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. Gabbard's two-day trip to India marks the first senior-level visit from the Trump administration to India during his second term. Speaking to ANI, Gabbard defended Trump's reciprocal tariffs, citing that both India and the U.S. are working towards finding good economic solutions.
There is an opportunity here to see more potential for the strengthening of our economic relationship. And I'm glad to see that they're looking at it in a more positive light than just one that is focused in a negative way when we look at tariffs. Obviously, Prime Minister Moody is looking out for what is in the best interests of India's economy and the opportunities available for the people of India. Similarly, President Trump is doing the same for the United States, our economic interests and the interests of the American people. So what I see as a great positive is that we have two leaders who have common sense and who are looking for good solutions.
Now, shares of IndusInd Bank surged in today's trade after the Reserve Bank of India assured customers that the bank is well capitalized and financially stable. The stock had ended 28% lower last week. It had disclosed an accounting discrepancy worth 2,000 crore rupees last Monday. Over the weekend, the RBI directed the bank's board to complete all remedial actions during the ongoing quarter and ensure necessary disclosures to stakeholders. And the Bombay High Court has discharged a case of alleged market regulation violation against Gautam Adani and Rajesh Adani. The case was pertaining to alleged market violations amounting to 388 crore rupees. Remember, in 2012, the Serious Fraud Investigation Office had initiated legal proceedings against Adani Enterprises Limited and its promoters. The agency accused them of criminal conspiracy and cheating. The Adanis moved the Bombay High Court after a sessions court in November of 2019 refused to give them relief. The High Court stayed the order in December of 2019 itself, with interim relief being extended from time to time. And SpiceJet shares surged after the company announced that its CEO and promoter Ajay Singh will infuse 295 crore rupees into the airline via its promoter Spice Healthcare. SpiceJet has said that the fresh infusion will take place through the conversion of 13 crore warrants into 13 crore equity shares. This will increase the consolidated shareholding of the promoter group in the airline to 33% from 29%. CEO Ajay Singh will dispose up to 3.15 crore rupee equity shares to help Spice Healthcare partially fund the allotment of equity shares. The NCLAT has deferred the hearing on the competition watchdog CCI's case against WhatsApp's 2021 privacy policy. The tribunal cited the upcoming digital personal data protection rules for its decision. The government has released the draft rules for consultation. The NCLAT said it will hear the case after the notification of these rules. Remember, the tribunal stayed the CCI's earlier order barring WhatsApp from transferring user data to Meta for 5 years in January of 2025. Maruti Suzuki will hike vehicle prices by up to 4% from April to offset the impact of rising input costs. This would be the third time that the company has increased the cost of its vehicles this year. Tata Motors has also announced that it will hike prices by up to 2% for commercial vehicles. Sudarshan Kumar is joining us now with more details. Sudarshan.
Two auto companies that have announced price increase today are Maruti Suzuki and Tata Motors. Maruti Suzuki has announced a price increase by up to 4%, and that would be effective April 1. And Tata Motors has announced a price increase by up to 2% for its commercial vehicle segment, and this too will be effective April 1. So first talking about Maruti, it's the third price hike in the recent past. The first price hike recently was announced by Maruti in December 2024, which was effective January 1, and the second price increase announced in January was effective Feb, and today's price increase announcement will be effective April 1, and the price increase by Maruti has been by up to 4% each in the last 3 times that company has taken a price increase. So why the price hike has been taken by these companies? As per companies, price has increased for certain products, and that's the reason these companies have taken a price increase. But the question is, apart from an increase in price of certain products, are the falling sales also one of the reasons of the price increase? Because if you look at the February wholesale data, sales were largely below estimates, especially for the entry-level segment, not only for four-wheelers but also for two-wheelers. Especially for Maruti, Espresso and Alto's sales in February wholesales were down 30% each. Now, retail data for the first 2 weeks of March also suggests that demand remains under pressure. Now, talking the segment-wise, in the first 2 weeks of March, registration of two-wheelers has been down 16%. For passenger vehicles, registration is down 22%, and for commercial vehicles, it's down 15%. Now, company-specific data for Hero Moto and Bajaj Auto, registration is down in the range of 14 to 17%, while for TVS Motor, it's flat, and Royal Enfield has seen a minor increase of 2%. In the passenger vehicle space, Maruti, Tata Motors and Hyundai have seen a decline in the registration in the range of 24 to 32%, with Tata Motors being the biggest underperformer, and for M&M the decline is 8%. In the CV space, similar trend was seen. Tata Motors has seen a decline of 14%, and Ashok Leyland, it's a decline of 11%. So we'll have to see how the next 2 weeks pan out. Also, if other companies too follow Tata Motors and Maruti and announce a price increase.
Now, shares of Ola Electric tanked 8% in trade to hit its lowest price since listing in August of last year. This came a day after a vehicle registration agency, Rosmerta Digital Services, sued the company for defaulting on payments. It has filed a plea in NCLT Bengaluru. Rosmerta also petitioned to initiate corporate insolvency proceedings against the e-scooter maker. Parishit Luthra now joins us with more details. Parishit, give us a sense of the concerns that have been raised before the NCLT and what the response of the company has been.
You know, multiple factors playing as far as Ola Electric goes, and this has really been weighing on investor concerns. Now, number one, the company's net loss had widened to 564 crores in Q3. Then it has yet to achieve profitability. In fact, the company and its founder has said that they will be EBITDA positive when they achieve a sales milestone of 50,000 vehicles per month. Currently, they're not close to that mark in any way. Then you have at least 10,000 consumer complaints with the Consumer Protection Authority, and the CCPA has asked for more information on that front. Then overall, a dip in sales as well. And now you have a legal case which has been filed by Rosmerta Digital Services Limited, which was the vehicle registration agency for Ola Electric. Ola Electric has direct sales. It does not sell through dealerships, and therefore they had hired this agency to register vehicles and also provide high security number plates to customers. Now, Rosmerta claims, and under the Section 9 petition before the NCLT Bengaluru bench, they said that Ola Electric has not paid them dues worth 22 crore rupees over the last few months, and therefore they have initiated these proceedings. There are two pleas that have been filed by Rosmerta. But there is also a larger issue. Ola, on the 19th of February, had said that they are renegotiating contract terms with their vehicle registration agencies, and therefore vehicle registrations for the month of February may be impacted, and this will be normalized in the next few weeks. Now, as per the vehicle registration data from the government, there were 8,600 vehicles sold by Ola Electric in the month of February. Now, you cannot sell vehicles as per rules without permanent registration or temporary registration. If these vehicles have not got a permanent registration, then they have to be temporarily registered, at least for a 1 month period. That is the maximum period for a temporary registration. Ola has said that they have sold 25,000 units in the month of February. So the question that arises, if 8,600 shows up on the Vahan portal as permanently registered, how are the rest of the vehicles registered? Were these temporary registrations? Ola is yet to answer that question. Also, if you look at the month of March, for that matter, the sales as per the registration portal of the government is 7,700 units. If this is happening, then are these sales numbers for actual February sales, which are now being registered in the month of March? So several complicated questions there for Ola Electric, which they need to explain and also tell us how they are actually now registering units or vehicles for customers who are buying their scooters.
Indeed, Pariksha, thanks a lot for that. Clearly, some tough questions await. Ola Electric, the case we're given to understand is likely to come up in the space of this week. Moving ahead, the Supreme Court has issued notice to the centre on a plea challenging the government's power to appoint the Comptroller and Auditor General. The PIL has sought an independent selection panel to appoint the CAG. The court has sought for a response from the centre. The plea also argued that the CAG is tasked with auditing and is favouring the centre. Well, time now for a short break, but don't go anywhere. The news and updates will continue on the other side. Welcome back. Now back to our top story. India's trade deficit fell to a 3.5-year low of $14 billion for the month of February, thanks to a steep fall in imports. Lata Venkatesh is here with more details. Lata, what do you make of the trade data and the implications for the economy?
Well, first up, the goods trade deficit coming in at $14 billion is the lowest we have seen since August of 2021. 3.5-year low. Now, normally, in normal month, the monthly trade deficit ranges that, I'm only speaking of goods. Goods trade deficit ranges between 15 billion and 25 billion, more in the 20s. 1 or 2 months, it has even been $30 billion. So 14 billion is really abnormally low for a normal month. Remember, 2021 was COVID lockdown months, as was 2020, when we had these low trade deficit numbers. Commerce Ministry officials, however, in their press conference said this is only because of a high base in February when imports were high. Crude prices have fallen a bit this February, and gold imports were a little lower. That's their explanation. But let me tell you the positive. If you count the services plus goods, then this month we are reporting a surplus in trade, which is again the first time we are reporting a surplus since May of 2021. And at that time we reported a surplus because we imported almost nothing. Those were COVID lockdown months. So this surplus is something we can thump the table about. The February surplus number implies that a similar thing could be repeated in March, because services is really going strong, services exports, and therefore for the full quarter, Jan, Feb, March, we may report a current account surplus, and that can push the whole full year current account deficit from the 1 to 1.2% of GDP that was estimated all the way down to 0.5% to 0.75% of GDP, which is remarkable considering that we have a capital flows deficit this year. The very low current account deficit is very welcome. Now, what is the negative? The February deficit falling to 14 billion is because imports have fallen to a 3-year low at $50 billion. That is the worry. Is this because the economy is not able to consume enough imports? Is there a slowdown? Remember, the PMI in February also came at a 14-month low, and auto sales were also pretty poor. Entry-level cars, two-wheelers, domestic sales generally did badly. So that's the only fear about this number.
Right, Lata, thanks a lot for breaking that down for us. That big question mark there in terms of what it means for consumption. But at least as far as those headline numbers are concerned, some saving grace there, silver lining there as far as these trade data numbers are concerned. Thanks a lot for that input. But that's all the time that we have. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Business 360. More news and updates will continue right here on CNBC TV 18.